Intro. Hey, Vsauce, Lucas here. What is Mario? Seriously, what is Mario? Statistically, a good majority of people watching this video should have played a Mario game. Though most people have played a Mario game, it's difficult for many people to pin down exactly what makes a Mario game truly Mario. Mario stomps the Goombas, gets the coins, and all that such. What exactly is it that makes Super Mario a Super Mario game? How many elements are required to make a Super Mario game? Nowadays, we have two different types of Marios, a 3D Mario and a 2D Mario. A 2D Mario has a very simple and rigid structure. However, a 3D Mario has something far more non-linear. Such things could be said about any platformer. But what exactly is a Super Mario game? Let's start where this divide began, in the 90s. In 1994, Sony released the PlayStation, and with it came the next generation of video game consoles. The fifth generation of video game consoles was kind of an entire mess. To put a very long story short, one of the few major problems with video game development at this time was that 3D games are definitely much harder to make than any sort of 2D game. It was assumed that because of the enthralling nature of 3D video games, 2D games were just kind of considered obsolete. To make a 2D game is to be in the past, or to be not as cool as a 3D game. I think there's a very few examples that very clearly denote that that's not quite the case. More than likely, during the fifth generation of video game consoles, that is where the shift between 2D designed video games and 3D designed video games truly began. For the most part, most video game franchises would just move their series that they had developed from 2D to 3D, and then that was just it. That was pioneered by Super Mario 64, a game that was very clearly meant to take Mario and move him forward, taking what originally worked with Mario's game design and moving it into 3D. While it's good for 3D games to exist, and is the future of video games, I think it's a good idea to recognize that 2D games still have value. A good example is something like Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Castlevania Symphony of the Night released in 1997. I think that's really late for a quote-quote old-style video game to be releasing. I think it's clear that 2D games still have a place. And then boom! PS2! Lots of 2D games and 2D franchises that were primarily known for 2D games that were just pretty much just side-scrollers and top-down games all went onto the Game Boy Advance and then later on the Nintendo DS. It was very uncommon to see a 2D side-scroller on a main console as a almost AAA title. It was still super uncommon. It's very clear that there wasn't a lot of drive to make 2D games anymore. Then E3 2004 rolls around.
Well, the wait is over. This is Nintendo DS.
Seen here is footage of Reggie Fils-Aimé, at the time current president of Nintendo of America, demonstrating the new handheld called the Nintendo DS. And it had two screens, one of being a touchscreen. It actually had a full set of face buttons this time. And wait a minute! That doesn't look like a Super Mario Advance title. It had almost been 12 years since the last new 2D Mario title, even on handhelds. Super Mario Land 2 released in 1992, 12 years prior. The classic Super Mario Bros. Formula hadn't exactly been taken anywhere anytime soon. During the Game Boy Advance days, there was the Super Mario Advance series, a game series entirely centered around taking remade titles of Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario Bros. 3, and Super Mario World all at the same time, and taking each one of those games and putting them on the Game Boy Advance, with a couple of enhancements added. There hadn't been a true new 2D Mario game since the original Super Mario Land 2, considering after the Super Mario Land 2 game, there was Super Mario Land 3, Wario Land, and then it became Wario Land. Nintendo hadn't really focused on Mario in a really long time. This game, called New Super Mario Bros., intended on taking the original formula, the original Super Mario Bros. Games, and trying to take them and just do it again. Now, how exactly do you take Super Mario Bros. And do something new with it? Well, I think that's a major issue with this original game. How exactly do you take the original Super Mario Bros. Formula and do anything new with it? Quite frankly, at this time, there wasn't much need to do that at all. The fact that it existed and had value from it being just a new 2D Mario game had value on its own. However, to try and take something that had already existed and to just do it again is pretty repetitious, especially if you're trying to create a new game. And that wasn't the goal. The goal was to make a new Super Mario Bros. So what do? If you've got this mainline series of 3D Mario games, and you're making a new 2D Mario game, considering those are sequels to the original Super Mario Bros., why not just take from those to make this new Super Mario Bros. Game? A lot of those are things like the wall jump or the ground pound. I personally really enjoy the new Super Mario Bros. Series. Oh, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, this wasn't just one new Super Mario Bros. Game. Yeah, it became a series. I mean, you probably knew that, considering, 30 million people own New Super Mario Bros. Alone, and 30 million more people also own New Super Mario Bros. Wii. I'm pretty sure it's a good assumption that you probably have at least played or own one of these games. In terms of level design, New Super Mario Bros. Isn't the most innovative. That doesn't exactly mean a direct negative to its level designs. However, it does include a lot of incentives within those levels to make them more enjoyable, even if they're quite short. And that is the star coins. You see, in Super Mario Advance 2, Super Mario World, which is a direct port slash remake slash kind of something of Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo, they had added a tally for all of the Yoshi coins, or Dragon coins, whichever you choose. Previously, they were just level assets, coins for the collection to get an extra life. However, unlike the original Super Mario World, should you collect all of the Dragon coins, all the Dragon coins past that point get turned into a Peach coin. It's not much, no, but it is something. You get something for collecting everything, which by this point they had learned was really valuable in a platformer. Prior to that point, most games had just very simple design mentality. Just get to the exit. It doesn't matter how you get from one end to the other. All that mattered was that you needed to get from here to Peach. You needed to get here to the flagpole. You just needed to get to the end of the stage. Past this point, it wasn't just about that. New Super Mario Bros. Both uses them as a currency, but also as a stock standard collectible. You have to collect all of them to unlock, well, it's just a star. You just get a star. It's a star on the save file. Or you get an extra little, the thing on the bottom screen. I didn't unlock it. I had played New Super Mario Bros. After I played New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and I completed that, so I didn't really want to do it again, so I just kind of didn't get all of the star coins. Anyway, New Super Mario Bros. Actually has some really, really good boss fights. It's kind of incredible. I haven't seen boss fights that really do anything like this since, well, Yoshi's Island, actually. I don't think the Mario series really does anything with boss fights, at least anything unique. A lot of the boss fights kind of suck in a lot of Mario games. I mean, except for the Bowser Jr. boss fights. Yeah, those are fucking hilarious. A lot of the boss fights actually utilize elements that were existent prior to this game. That is something that this game does a lot. Reuse assets. And I know that that can sound like a bad thing, but in terms of a game designer and developer mindset, that is extremely respectable. You see, a lot of these assets, a lot of this game is built out of Super Mario 64 DS, ironically. It's a pretty good example of how to take what you already have and do more with it. A lot of times, there's not a very good separation between reuse of assets in a positive way and a negative way. I think that New Super Mario Bros. Does that pretty well. It's clear from the initial impression that New Super Mario Bros. Is meant to be, to put it lightly, familiar. The game starts out with a basic structure of a ground level type, then an underground level, a third level adding new enemies and some new mechanics not seen in the first level, and then a small tower castle level. Structure derived from earlier Mario games is to be expected with a game intending to do exactly that. But what does that really provide? The classic Mario structure wasn't abandoned for no reason. Moving to 3D games with a slightly less linear structure was a move made out of less innovation and more desperation. Super Mario 64 utilized an entirely new design method and mechanical structure because of the original Super Mario Bros. Structure requiring a lot more time and care to be placed into 3D. That in itself wouldn't happen until almost 14 years later with Super Mario 3D Land. I feel that the classic Mario structure having a place and not being considered stale is up for the interpretation of those who do or do not enjoy these games. They don't miss though. In reality, games aren't all good and all bad. I feel Super Mario Bros. Feels pretty centered. An average Mario to play it a bit safe, yes, but I do feel like it provides a great groundwork for what could be one of my favorite 2D platformers. It may not be perfect, but for the time, it's pretty great. Now, for the most part, this all mostly applies just to 2D games on handhelds still. 3D games reign supreme on home consoles, considering AAA games haven't gotten to the point of being humbled that much quite yet. You see, by the time New Super Mario Bros. Came out, Nintendo was working on another project. A project that would revolutionize a lot of things. And one of those things is being able to play old games downloadable. Being able to access old games at any time. You can download them and play them whenever you want, called the Virtual Console. This was quite new of an idea. Not even any other company would come up with an idea quite as robust this soon. The only one that came close was Microsoft, the Xbox Live Arcade, providing access to, arcade games, I think. I mean, the Xbox Live Arcade hadn't gotten really that much attention at that point yet, but it would soon. You see, Virtual Console did something that I think caused a lot more dominoes to fall. Have you ever heard of the angry video game nerd? Yeah, you probably fucking have, especially if you're watching a video like this. You see, what had happened right then, in the mid-2000s, it's something that is very commonly referred to as the retro video game revival. Back in my day, games were much better. We had Castlevania 2 and we had Castlevania 2 and we shat on Zelda 2 because it wasn't Zelda 1. I don't know. It was a weird time, especially considering YouTube and, just online video content in general hadn't really matured yet. And, there was a lot of shit jokes. I'm not gonna lie. but they were really, really funny shit jokes. You see, it was very clear that market situations were going to lead to this situation where many people were wanting older games and older types of games again. Something that was very clear about this was that people were getting tired of the shooty shoot man boots ground brown shooter game, Gears of Call of Halo Duty titles games. People were getting sick of that shit. I mean, fair to them. It's pretty easy to assume that if you're a gamer, if you're a gamer at that time, chances are you probably didn't want that. At least if you wanted a change of pace. That's part of what made the retro video game revival so impactful. Clearly, a lot of people just kind of played the original Nintendo Entertainment System and then just didn't play anything else. Or maybe they played the Super Nintendo, or maybe the Genesis, but they didn't really get into games after that because of the 5th generation of video game consoles being so mismanaged, so decimating for so many companies, killing Sega as a hardware manufacturer, birthing Sony as a video game hardware manufacturer as well. It was a lot of changes, but people wanted classic experiences. They wanted to play new Mario games, and New Super Mario Bros. Did that very well. But they couldn't play it on their TV. You see, it was right around this time that the Wii had finally released. Now, Nintendo releasing Nintendo Entertainment System games available for them to be bought and used and played on the Virtual Console, well, could have just been enough. Nintendo decided to take things just a little bit further. They made a completely new 2D Mario game. Again, yeah, I mean, it's New Super Mario Bros. Wii. You see, 2 is having a guest. 3 is company. 4 is a party. Just like sex. Lots of games in this era leaned in a couple of different directions. There's games with strictly a major campaign, games that have a campaign alongside a multiplayer mode, strictly multiplayer games, and the last one, the one that can be done horribly if not done right. Co-op is difficult, not just because having to tell 4 different stinky gamers to cooperate is difficult, but to also make the same experience just as fun as a solo player. There's a lot of solutions for this. Most games of this type just make a single player game that doesn't pause. Borderlands is a good example. So is Minecraft Bedrock Edition. It's so much simpler to develop a game that just has 2 player ones. Everyone has their own screen, everyone's in charge of their own decisions. The exact opposite is just as easy. Make a game where no one player can do everything on their own, requiring players to interact with some element to make a change in game state, like Legend of Zelda 4 Swords or Portal 2's co-op campaign. New Super Mario Bros. Wii does something amazing that I haven't seen before or since. Both. The entire game is completable with a full party of 4 people interacting to help, and especially to hurt, each other. While if you choose to, the game is a completely and extremely well-polished sequel to New Super Mario Bros. In single player. Kind of off-topic tangent here, but lives and scores seem archaic in most modern games. There's a reason to expect that there isn't much need for both mechanics in an age without high scores. However, there isn't much to replace them in terms of game currency. Lives act as a mechanism for progression safety, and in most cases, where they currently exist in modern games. It provides a directly shown amount of times the player is allowed to make mistakes. In fact, Super Mario has always been good at using graphic illustration to display the game status in a succinct manner. The get a mushroom, grow bigger mechanic clearly demonstrates the use of showing game state by changing the way the player interacts with the player pawn and the environment. The score system may still seem vestigial. I believe that it complements this system as well, as in other platformers, such as classic 2D Sonic. The score system works in tandem with the lives. Every 10,000 points at the end of a stage grants a continue, A continue saves the player from having to restart the entire game when they game over, essentially acting as a bonus 3 lives safety net. These types of mechanics allow the game to operate in a clear and understandable yet complex and intuitive manner. However, the score in all of the new Super Mario Bros. Games do not act in this way. It's likely what leads to the feeling of archaic mechanisms left in for posterity's sake. Each world has a varied and lovingly crafted and well-paced set of levels. No level truly overstays its welcome, with memorable level designs throughout, cheekily referencing past games with subtle level design patterns, and then later completely mixing up the traditional Mario level formula. With most of these levels utilizing one of the best things added to the 2D Mario structure, non-standard moving level geometry, and concealed level areas. So many levels move and bob, making you need to work around the level in a new, very non-Mario way. With concealed areas, there's so many more places you need to look to find all the secrets, which is taking something from the original Yoshi's Island as a part of... I didn't write that in there, so I don't know. I mean, it came from Yoshi's Island, so I guess I already have that. The Star Coins! New Super Mario Bros. Wii continues this, but instead of buying gates... Wait, I actually have to mention the Star Coins. Hold on. In the original New Super Mario Bros., the Star Coins as a currency are able to buy pathways and certain mushroom houses, allowing you to get items and 1-ups and other such rarer items as well as unlocking specific levels. In New Super Mario Bros. Wii, the Star Coins continue to be a currency, but instead of buying gates, you're buying time demos off of Speed Demos Archive. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess these are useful? I mean, you can find use in them, but I mean, it's just, you're just watching Nintendo employees just playing New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Why not just play it? You own it. You own New Super Mario Brothers. Well, just play it. Just play it. I mean, if you don't have friends, skill issue, but I mean, wouldn't that mean that these demos are worthless? Well, no, not really. I mean, they've got a better idea of exactly using these demos for a specified purpose. They show a lot of things that aren't directly given to the player. Certain places have pretty obscure locations for their Star Coins, and some of those locations are given out within these demos. They're fun to watch, but they're not much. They're pretty alright. You could spend your Star Coins on worse. I mean, you could buy a bottom screen skin in the original New Super Mario Brothers. I don't know what you would use those for, but you can do it. However, in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, the Star Coins do a lot more that isn't directly stated until you complete the game. If you collect every single Star Coin, you don't just get the 1 star on the save file. Instead, you unlock levels in the final world, World 9. However, World 9 is kind of fucking bullshit. Some of them are just... These levels suck. Straight up, not fun. Some of them are fun, yes, I'll admit, but most of them just end up blasting near Kaizo level bullshittery at you, especially level 9-7. This level has you running around trying not to get hit by all the Venus fire traps, real name by the way, hoping to God that you make it to where you need to go fast enough before this disappearing floor with ice physics. Horrible level. Worst part in the whole game. And that's after the Bob-omb Bullet Hell auto-scroller 3 levels before. To be honest, this game doesn't really get super hard throughout. I mean, it is a game designed for families after all. But in reality, this game is simply comfortable. At no time, other than World 9, did I feel like this game was being cheap or mean with enemy placement or simply trial and error level design. That's really this game's strong suit. For the most part, this game doesn't feel draining or encumbering. I honestly completed the game and didn't feel starved, but I also didn't feel like I had wasted my time doing so. I think I missed that. Games today are so large. So many games want to keep your attention for a damn 60 to near 80 damn hours now. I feel the perfect length for a game is right here. 8 to 20 hours. While this game might be a bit on the shorter end, this is the same experience of sitting down and watching all 3 Back to the Future films in a row. Modern games feel like you're sitting down to watch the entirety of One Piece. I never finished them. I still haven't finished Tears of the Kingdom. But this game's length, it's my jam. That line is awful. I'm not keeping that. That's a terrible line. I'm not keeping it. I want to quickly compare this game to Sonic Mania. I know Matt might be more apt to compare it to Sonic 4, given the time frame, but fuck off. Sonic Mania was the first full return to form for the original series' gameplay style, bringing back old elements, but almost entirely giving it a new life and whimsy. It may not be entirely original, but that isn't a major downside. I don't know if we would have even seen the retro revival get as popular as it did without this game. Maybe not even have gotten Sonic Mania. This is it. This is the best of the series right here. I believe that. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is essentially the series peak. The next 2 sequels wouldn't even come close to being as great as this. While I can make an exception for New Super Mario Bros. 2, given its nature as a game with a simple gimmick to stand it apart, New Super Mario Bros. U is not a true advancement in any way to the original 2 games, as it does nothing new. This series may not have been known for its originality, but I don't think that stopped it from being amazing. Sometimes you don't need to make the biggest game ever. Sometimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes a shorter game is better. Sometimes it's okay to like something simple. I'm not great with bias. I don't like the idea of a teacher saying, there's only one way to do this. It's what personally keeps my mind open to games I never thought could have good design to study from. Bias in the other direction can deeply affect critical analysis, however. I must admit, this is the first game I finished as a kid. This game inspired me to start making and studying games in the first place. I got my parents to come in the room telling them I beat the game. After a bit of banter between my parents, my mom told me, that's the guy who made the original Mario, pointing to Shigeru Miyamoto's name. And then I knew I wanted to make games. At least I didn't want to be a YouTuber. Indeed. You say goodbye? Huh? You say bye?